Okay, good morning, afternoon, and for Monique, good evening. I want to thank you guys for being on today for our YVI session. I'm really excited about our special guest. I've gotten to know this wonderful young lady through my co-partner Monique, and so I'm just going to get started with her bio. Dr. Valerie Marcano is a poultry veterinarian in the Carolinas. She is also a co-founder of Plausibility, a nonprofit that aims to increase recruitment and retention of underrepresented groups to the veterinary profession. She is the chair of the first ever Diversity and Inclusion Committee of the American Association of Avian Pathologists, and that's AAAP, and a member of the AVMA and AAVMC Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. Dr. Marcano received a Bachelor of Science at Cornell University and her DVM and PhD degrees from the University of Georgia College of Veterinary Medicine, UGA, in 2017 and in 2020, respectively. Her PhD focused on vaccination strategies for Newcastle disease. I'm going to ask what that is. During her time at UGA, Valerie served on the executive board of the National and University of Georgia's chapter of Veterinarians and One Inclusive Community for Empowerment for 6 years. She founded the Swine, Agriculture, and Poultry Food Animal Club and has served in many roles in the board of directors and diversity, inclusion, education, and membership committees of the AAP. So Valerie, that all being said, and I know there's so much more to you, I want to thank you for coming on and presenting to the YVI community.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you guys today. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, and then I'm just going to touch on my journey through the veterinary profession and a little bit about mentorship and tell you about possibilities. So welcome and thank you again for having me. Where am I from? So I was actually born in Miami, Florida, and I lived in the Dominican Republic, which is a small island in the Caribbean that we share with Haiti, until I was 14 years of age. And when I was 14, I moved into to New York City with my aunt. In the Dominican Republic, I grew up with my two siblings. I am the middle child. I have an older sister and a younger brother. My mom is a veterinarian. And so I grew up within the veterinary community with a lot of her friends who I knew since childhood. And I also grew up in a very multicultural environment. So my cousins are half Italian. I have neighbors that were from Germany, from Italy, from Haiti, from the Czech Republic. I also grew up watching novelas. For any of you who know what that is, they're very, very dramatic soap operas. And one in particular called The Clone actually introduced me to Middle Eastern culture and multiculturalism, as well as the art of belly dance. So it was very impactful for me as a kid to watch the show.
Wait, before you proceed, you got to tell us which one of those little ones you are.
So I am the middle one with the big bow.
That's what I was thinking, but I just wanted to know for sure. Okay.
So this picture is with my mom, and like I said, she's a veterinarian. I was very fortunate to be exposed to vet med since I was very young. She worked full-time, had her own small animal veterinary practice. And when I was very young, she actually started working for the Ministry of Agriculture at the same time. So she had basically two full-time jobs and raised me and my brother and sister. When I was 14, I moved to New York City. I moved in with my aunt and my uncle and their kids, and I attended Bronx International High School. One of the things that I realized is that I missed animals very much. So they didn't have any pets, and I was fortunate enough to find a pet shop where I worked in a small animal clinic with Dr. Julie R. Butler, may she rest in peace, my first veterinary mentor in the US, an amazing African-American woman who very interestingly was the first face of veterinary medicine that I saw in the US. So throughout this entire journey, all I saw were people that looked like me, right? All through when I was 14, 15, I was very, very fortunate. I also attended Bronx International High School, where it was very different. It was a very international environment. It was specifically for individuals that had been in the US for 4 years or less. And so everybody was from different countries. I got exposed to individuals from all over the place, learning that just the Spanish language that I grew up with was not just Spanish, right? Like different words can mean the same thing in different languages, and same words can mean completely different things in a different dialect from a different country. So English was the bridge that we all had, and we made it work. I was fortunate enough to have not very good mentors that allowed me to grow as an individual, to get involved within different clubs. And I actually ended up taking College Now classes at a community college nearby. I had people that helped me with my college applications. And years later, looking back, is when I realized the importance of having someone see your potential and build you as a person. So then I went to Cornell University as I started in the summer of 2008. I joined the pre-freshman summer program. I struggled a lot with the courses. My high school had not had any AP classes or anything like that. And honestly, I spent a lot of time questioning whether I should be there and whether I could do it. I at the same time made lifelong friends, was exposed to campus very early, which meant that I had kind of a leg up compared to other individuals. And as the semester started, I continued to struggle with classes. I ended up joining several different clubs, including Ordinary People, which was a social justice troupe. And I lived at the Holland International Living Center, where we turn the negatives into positives, and became a very good community of tight individuals with from a lot of different backgrounds. One day, as I was walking
Valerie,
around campus, yes.
May I interrupt just a sec? You mentioned AP classes, so can you tell us what AP means?
Yeah, advanced placement courses. So some schools, I think it depends on location and funding, will have some of these like AP advanced placement biology or history or whatever that may be. I did not even know what those were, right? I didn't realize when I started at Cornell as a first year, as a freshman, that other people had access to those courses. I had, very little chemistry. I had some biology. Actually, no, I had good chemistry. I had very little like physics. In the state of New York, we took Regents exams, and I remember struggling to figure out what it was that I needed to do and needed to know to compared to what other individuals were doing in other schools. And looking back at it as a freshman and learning that everybody else had some of these courses was very interesting to me, not really knowing and feeling like I had been at a slight disadvantage, although I did get to take some of those College Now classes. So I basically went to community college while I was in school. So that was kind of the equivalent of that for me. But going into animal sciences at Cornell University, I had wished that some of those courses had been more in the realm of like biology and chemistry. And I just didn't feel like I had that preparation. And I think it was a little bit more difficult for me because even though like my mother went to college, she did that in the Dominican Republic, not in the US. And so I didn't have as much guidance other than like my guidance counselor in school for, what I needed to do to apply and to go to college.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. One day as I was, as a freshman, as I was walking around, I walked by an office and saw a dog, and being the animal-oriented individual that I am, I immediately walked in and said, "Hey, can I pet your dog?" that started a lifelong friendship with a very good friend that I still stay in touch with, who was one of the writers for the president of the university at the time. And I helped walk during my spare time different guide dogs in training that she had. So that was one of the things that I did to continue to have some of that animal contact. At the same time, I also joined Tasia Belly Dance Troupe, which was an amazing, diverse group that did a lot of work on celebrating your body, your accomplishments. We all grew together and found that even though we were all going into different paths and doing different things, we had, this one area that connected us together. I also joined Alpha Zeta Fraternity, which was not very diverse necessarily, but it was very inclusive. And that's actually where I met my husband. And you can see from a lot of the pictures that I'm going to show you today that like anytime I found an animal anywhere, I was immediately drawn to it. On the top right, it is the face of pure joy, right? And I just, anytime I would see an animal, I would just get so excited about it. I also was able to go abroad for a semester. So I actually spent a semester at the University of Newcastle in England and spend a week at their university farm working with pigs and chickens and cows. And through that, I got to go abroad. I got to go to London and Paris. I went to Sweden and Italy. It was so much fun. And I learned a lot about different cultures. I met a lot of people that I'm still in touch with. One of the most important things is that I worked hard to take every opportunity that I was given, whether that was, walking guide dogs, whether that was joining a swine club and helping out, going out to farms, whether that was a day in ag, or going out with the different labs in the animal science department. And I tried to see as much as I could at all times. I got exposed to a lot of different things, and I took risks, and I met people, and I grew quite a bit. I also met my lifelong partner, Dr. Seth Andrews, who is the co-founder of Possibilities Vet Med. And this is us through the years, going from 2010 until fairly recently. I applied to, I graduated in 2012 from my undergraduate degree. So I had a bachelor's in science with a minor in Spanish. I had a distinction in research, and I had struggled academically significantly, right? So for me, this picture in the bottom center was the first and only time that I ever made the dean's list. And it was my very last semester. And it was, for me, it was like, I'm going out with a bang. This is great, right? I did apply to veterinary school the fall 2011, and I did not get in my first year. I applied, I didn't get in. It happens to a lot of people. There's no shame in it. I remember being very upset and figuring out, did I do something wrong? What could I have done better? So I took a job as a technician, worked for a year in a laboratory at the Cornell Vet School, and took a couple of different classes, studied for the GRE, applied a second time, and was accepted to the University of Georgia College of Veterinary Medicine as part of the class of 2017, which was very exciting for me. During that first year, I also applied to the dual veterinarian PhD program and was accepted. And that's how I ended up getting both my vet and PhD degrees. I met so many good people while I was at Georgia, and these are just some of the people from my old vet school class, because I had to kind of step out of the class of 2017 to do my PhD and join a different class, and some people from my new class from different clubs and different groups. As Sharita mentioned during my bio, I joined Voice, which was a diversity and inclusion veterinary group, and through that I met veterinary students from all over the country. So I graduated in 2020. While I was in Georgia, I also ended up, actually throughout the journey, I ended up adopting a lot of animals. So I have 4 right now. I have 2 dogs and 2 cats, which are those in the picture. And I got married. And I, with my husband and with some friends, started Possibilities. Wendy, did you have a question?
No, I'm good.
Oh, go ahead. Well, I do. Now, something made you start Possibilities and the mentoring. Was it your school experiences? Was it difficulty and you wish you would have had someone to coach you? What made you have the focus that it has?
Yeah, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So do you mind if I answer it in a couple of slides?
I do. I think that's fine.
Thank you. So yeah, that's where we're going, actually. Very timely question. So when we talk about the path into veterinary medicine, right? A lot of people when they're young, if they have had exposure to animals, or maybe even if they haven't, decide that they want to be an animal doctor. And a lot of times when you say you want to be an animal doctor, the people around you immediately think you want to be a veterinarian. Right. And that is one type of animal doctor. Just so you all know, there are multiple types of animal doctors. You can get PhDs and you can be a nutritionist and be a doctor. And there's a million things you can do while being an animal doctor. There is whether you want to be a veterinarian or whether you want to be a veterinary technician, right? So in my path, I finished high school, I did a bachelor's, I took a year off with a little bit of a detour, and then I did the DVM, which is a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. But there is no right or wrong path to do this, right? And the path doesn't need to be direct, and it doesn't need to lead to a veterinary degree. There's a multitude of different careers and things that you can do both within that veterinary degree and outside of that and still in the profession. So my path was full of people guiding me all throughout that path, right? I had I had my mom from a very young age who showed me what veterinary medicine was, who exposed me to all of it. And then I had all of her friends who were veterinarians who showed me different things that you could do, right? So my mom focused on small animal medicine. Then she did some small ruminant, she did some poultry. I met veterinarians that did public health, that worked with horses. And so I consider myself very fortunate to have been exposed to so many different careers within the veterinary profession. Then when I moved to New York City, I worked at a pet shop and worked at a small animal clinic. So I was surrounded by people who looked like me. Imagine my surprise as I continued to go. I went through Cornell University and then through my veterinarian PhD degree, realizing that not everybody had that. Not everybody had the exposure to all of the different careers that you could do within this profession. Not everybody had amazing mentors like I did. I had somebody in my high school who stayed with me until like 8 p.m. working on college applications just to make sure that I was able to apply and to apply on time and that my essays looked acceptable. Not everybody had that. So my path into veterinary medicine was full of mentorship. I had so many people in high school and college and vet school. I had what I call a village of mentors. And I wanted to make sure that everybody who came into this profession had that. And that's where the idea of Possibilities came. I wanted to make sure that people realize that a career in veterinary medicine is possible and that they could have mentors throughout this career as well. So in my mind, some of the things that were most important for me achieving this goal were the mentorship that I was afforded, the curiosity that I had, taking all of the opportunities that I was given and the opportunities that I worked very hard for, and perseverance, right? So I did my best. I continued to try. I didn't get in. I tried again. When I applied for part-time jobs and for jobs, sometimes I didn't get them, and that was okay. I just continued to apply, continued to call people. So I think those are some of the most important things for me that helped me in this journey. So I wanted to chat with you guys a little bit more about mentorship, and we'll get to Possibilities in a second. So mentoring is a relationship that you have with somebody, right? It can be usually, generally, is somebody who may have a little more experience than you, but it can happen with your peers as well, right? It's usually for the growth of the mentee, and usually your mentors are going to be role models and guide you. It can be formal, so there are formal mentorship arrangements, or it can be informal. It can be somebody that you met somewhere, that you've and them have decided could be a good person to guide you, right? And as I've said, I've had so many mentors, and they've all played such a huge impact in my life. And some of them are veterinarians, and some of them were veterinary technicians, and some of them are not in any way related to veterinary medicine, and some of them are not, are within the veterinary field, but are not veterinarians or technicians, right? So what I wanted to start was, there's a lot of information out there showing that mentorship has the power to change everything that we do and every job that we have, and create diverse and inclusive environments for all of us. So my thought, and the thought of possibilities in our entire team, is that mentoring has the power to change the face of veterinary medicine. Veterinary medicine is not very diverse. So if you're an individual that is not white, or if you're an individual that is from a lower socioeconomic status, or if you're an individual that has a disability, there may not be a lot of people within the veterinary profession that look like you. And what we want to do is allow individuals from groups that are not usually well represented within veterinary medicine to find mentors and to find advisors and to get exposure to the field, so that if this is something that they want to do, they can do it. I have a little bit of information on our mission and our vision and our strategy, but we can talk about that later if you guys have questions specifically about possibilities. Possibilities is for individuals that are 18 years and older, but if you are interested in veterinary medicine, you can still contact us, and we can still help guide you and put you in touch with other organizations that may work with younger individuals, or connect you with a mentor, maybe not on the platform. But in terms of the presentation, that's what I have. I wanted to make sure to leave plenty of time for questions, and I wanted to show you guys my favorite slide, my question slide, because it has so many different faces of the veterinary profession. And these are the advisory board and the board of directors of Possibilities. These are all individuals that volunteer their time with us to make sure that everybody gets access to our profession.
Great, great. Well, now, with you having questions up there, I'm assuming that anyone that's on now can ask any questions. So are there any questions for our speaker? None?
I want to ask something. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, thank you so much, Valerie. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You and Possibilities are part of the, you are one of the sources for the speakers on YVI. We've had Maria Jose come, she was early on. We're gonna have Mariana Pardo probably next week for YVI. Mariana is an emergency medicine veterinarian, and Maria Jose is a professor at Ross University at St. Kitts, and she talked to us about invasive species around the island. So I want to thank you for that first and foremost, but I want to ask you, when you were talking about your path to the veterinary profession, you mentioned an exam that you had to study for called the GRE. Could you explain to our attendees what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are, depending on what profession you want to go into, if you want to do a graduate degree, you may have to take an exam, and the GRE is one of those exams. So it has questions in math, in English and in writing. And it's a general like national test that sometimes is required for graduate programs. So for veterinary school is required for, I think, a lot of master's and PhD programs.
Okay, great. We have Bailey Brown with her hand up.
And we also have, go ahead.
Go ahead, Valerie.
I can't turn my camera on, but I was wondering, whenever you study abroad, is that like when your college sends you to study somewhere else, or you go to a different college somewhere else?
So it depends, actually. There are some colleges that will have like a campus. So they'll have almost like a small version of the college somewhere else. And I had some friends that did that. So having gone to Cornell University, Cornell had something, I think it was for architecture in Rome and something for dairy in like somewhere in Italy. And so you can do that. The way I did it is they also had a list of partner universities where they would send students for a semester. So you could choose a semester and go take classes in a different university.
Great, great. Now we have another person with their hand up. Is it pronounced Anazaya? Anazaya?
Just Anna.
Anna, hi.
My question was, how many years does it take to become a veterinarian?
So the College of Veterinary Medicine, so when you go to veterinary school, that itself is 4 years. However, you have to do, once you finish high school, you have to do a couple, at least 2 to 3 years of classes that make you eligible to apply, right? So there's a list of required classes that you have to complete. So what a lot of people will do is that they will do a bachelor's for 4 years before they go to veterinary school for another 4 years. So it's a long path. I know, I see your face. It's a long path. Some people can do actually some of the required courses in 2.5 or 3 years. That is very, very difficult to do. But I've seen people do it. So, yep.
Good, good, good. Anna, where are you located?
Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix. Thank you for being on. And Bailey, you're actually in Texas, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right, Monique? Yes, yes. Okay.
Yes.
I just want
Bailey's
all the
in
callers to
Houston.
know where everyone is. Good, good, good. Now, piggybacking off of Anna's question, Valerie, the amount of years that you're speaking of, that's kind of the standard no matter what medical profession you're going in, correct? Whether you're going to be a medical doctor for people or veterinary, correct?
Yes, yes. So if you want to be a physician, so a human doctor, it's the same path. The courses are actually almost the same, except that for the veterinary side, you have to get a number of years of experience. So you have to get experience working with a veterinarian. And then it's the same, I think, for dental school and for physical therapy. So it's very similar, yeah.
Okay, I have a question. With what's been going on right now with COVID-19, have you experienced more students needing more mentoring from you, or have you seen any kind of change in what you do?
I think people have needed more mentorship, and part of it is that a lot of times what happens is somebody decides that they want to explore like veterinary medicine as a career, right? So and this may be somebody who is a kid in middle school or in high school, but it can be somebody in college. It can be somebody who's working. I know people who have been, out in the field working as, as a teacher, as a musician, or as a journalist, and then they decide, I want to go to veterinary school, right? So when you do that, the first step is to find a veterinarian or 2 or 3 or 5 that you can shadow. And we call it shadowing because you may not get to do a lot and touch a lot. but you're kind of following people around, seeing what they do, so that you can learn whether this is something you want to do. So that's the first step. You find somebody, you say, hey, I may be interested in doing this. I would like to learn more about it. And they may let you, and it depends, right? They may let you come to their clinic and follow them for a day. There may be an opportunity to give you a job so you can work as a veterinary assistant. A lot of it is I'm gonna be really straight with you all. A lot of it is cleaning poop, okay? So we've all done it, we've all been there.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it's you follow them around, you learn about what they do, and if you decide that this is something that you want to do, then you look into, you know, doing the requirements and joining the profession. Now, with COVID, that has become a lot more difficult because a lot of clinics are closing to the outside. So if any of you have pets and had to take your pets to the vet when this pandemic started, a lot of veterinarians were not letting people come, or a lot of veterinary clinics weren't allowing the general public to come into the clinic, right? So they would come out to your car, get your dog or your cat or your snake and bring them in, take care of them, and then bring them back out. And that made it very, very difficult for students who wanted to come out and you know, and shadow to do it. And that's because it's a pandemic and everybody was worried about getting sick. And it makes sense that if you are in a position where you have a small staff, if somebody gets sick, then you're understaffed. So so that made it a lot more difficult for students over the past 2 years to get experience. And they made mentorship so much more important, right? Because if you could talk with somebody on Zoom or on the phone, maybe that would help you find a different kind of experience so that you could still look into what this profession was without having to go shadow somebody, or it might give you more opportunities to find somebody. So I think it became a lot more important. I know a lot of my students contacted me a little bit more often. And I know there's a question in the chat, but I always like to ask to all of you that are here, do you know what animals veterinarians work with? And if you could put in the chat one animal that veterinarians work with, and if somebody already put that animal, I want you to put a different animal there.
Okay.
And if you want to unmute yourself and say it out loud, you can do that too. Horses. I see horses.
Yeah, Anna says horses. Delanne Mayer says cat.
Cow.
Billy, cow.
Dog.
Jasmine, dog.
What else?
Bailey says pig. Nadia, rabbits. Alexandra, reptiles.
Nadia typed a question into the chat as well. So we want to make sure we get back to that. But let's keep going
Bailey,
with the animals.
birds again. I think it's Talia, donkeys. Anna also says hamsters. And Bissette says sheep.
Awesome.
Oh, I love sheep. I love sheep.
That's very good. That's a very good list. Marine animals. That's awesome.
Marine animals from Marley.
Okay, so I'm going to get back a little bit to Nadia's question so I don't forget it. And then we're going to get back to some of this. So feel free to keep typing it in the chat while we go back to this question. So the question is, I tried getting in contact with a few veterinarians, but they never got back to me. What should I do from there? So my first question back to you would be, how many veterinarians, when did you contact them? How did you contact them? And did you follow up, right? So sometimes we send out a message, let's say an email or a call, and leave a message and somebody doesn't reply. And we assume that maybe that person doesn't want to talk to us, or that they're ignoring us or something like that, right? But let's remember too that sometimes when, at least this happens to me, I don't know if it happens to you guys, sometimes we forget things, right? Or sometimes we get really busy and we say, yeah, we're going to do that, and we're going to do that, and we're going to do that. And then like a week goes by and we haven't done it, right? I don't know if that happens to you, but it happens to me all the time.
All the time.
And so one of the first things that I would say is, if you have contacted those veterinarians only once, contact them again, right? And if you have contacted by email, maybe make a phone call. And maybe if you can't get in touch with the veterinarian directly, there may be, if they work in a small animal practice, right, like a small hospital, the hospital may have a manager, and you can contact that person. The other thing you can do is make sure that you contact, a few different ones. And if that doesn't help, if you have somebody that that knows them, you may be able to say to that person, hey, so-and-so, would you mind making an introduction? So that would be my tip for you all. Okay, I've gotten in contact with 5 veterinarians.
Okay.
Called and emailed a few times. I was thinking about walking into the clinic, but I'm not sure if I can do that because of the pandemic. Nadia, what is your age range? You don't have to tell me your exact age if you don't want to, but are you in high school, in middle school, college? Because my answer may be a little bit different based on that.
And maybe while she's waiting, what do you think about her also contacting like pet stores?
That can work. You're a senior in high school. The only thing is that not every pet store will have a veterinarian. So that might, that will get some animal experience maybe. So I worked at a pet store. But if it doesn't have a veterinarian, then that might make it a little bit more difficult. I would say if you have sent some of these emails and done some calls, have you gotten somebody to say, look at the wording in your emails and give you some feedback on some of that? That is something that I do with some of my students. Or are you looking to shadow, or are you looking to work? If you're looking to work somewhere, have you send them a resume and said, this is some of the things that I know how to do. But the other thing that we can do is I can give you my email and we can talk about it a little bit more offline as well, if that's something that you're comfortable with.
Okay. Valerie,
That's
I also have to
wonderful.
congratulate you. I think you have gotten the largest audience of our speakers ever since we've been presenting the YVI since June. So
I feel fancy.
Yeah. And so I was wondering, are any of your mentor students on here? So if you guys could respond in the chat, are you one of her mentor students, or how did you hear about today's session?
And while y'all are doing that, I just want to read off some of the other animals that have been entered. Bissette says lemurs. Bailey says turtle. Anna says lions, tigers, elephants, zoo animals. So we're running the gamut there.
Did anybody catch during any of the times? I don't think it was mentioned too many times, what kind of veterinarian I am. I specifically didn't put it on a slide because I wanted to have more conversation around it. Bailey, you're raising your hand. Tell me.
I don't know, because maybe from the pictures you're a small animal veterinarian, maybe.
Somebody put it in the chat actually. So I work with chickens. So a little bit more actually is I don't work just with chickens. I work with poultry. Does anybody know what other animals are included in poultry besides chickens?
Geese and ducks, maybe.
Turkeys. Okay. Yeah. In some places, pigeons, depending on where you live. But yeah, that's great. We have a question in the chat, and it kind of ties in a little bit with what I wanted to talk about. So swans. Swans not as much, but yes. Okay, so the question is, there are a lot of different fields in veterinary medicine. How would you suggest we go about picking which field is right for us? Also, I have heard that it's normal for doctors, veterinarians, etc., to stay up to date in their field. I wanted to know if that is something that happens. And if so, has it been harder to do because of the pandemic? Wow, that is a fantastic question.
Wow.
All right.
Great question.
Yeah, so there are so many different fields. And that's part of why I wanted to have you guys put in the chat the different animals, right? So there are your veterinarians that are like the equivalent of your everyday doctor that you go to see, so a physician or a family practitioner. So these veterinarians may work at a small animal clinic. They may work at a large animal clinic where they go out and see cows and horses. They may work at a mixed animal practice where they see a little bit of everything. They may work at a cat-only practice where they only see cats. They may work at an exotics animal clinic where they see more, rabbits and turtles and snakes, right? And these are we call them clinicians. And then you have specialized clinicians. So you can do cardiology and focus just on, the heart and the veins and all of that. You can do dermatology and focus on skin and hair. You can do radiology and look at images of the inside of the body. So looking at bones and looking at the different organs. So there are so many different specialties, right, that you can do within this profession. Dr. Monique Wells on the call works as a pathologist, which help diagnose disease. And then you have individuals that work in internal medicine. So they're looking at all of the different body systems and trying to figure out when there's a really complex case, how to find it. The really, really cool thing about veterinary medicine is that you can do just about anything with it, right? So I have veterinarians that are doing research. They are learning about viruses and bacteria and parasites, right? They are, so Sharita, you asked about Newcastle disease. So Newcastle disease is actually a virus of chickens, is a really, really bad. And we don't have very much of it in this country, thankfully, but it is one of the biggest threats to chickens around the world. And so I worked on a vaccine, right? So the same way that for COVID, we were able to develop a vaccine, I helped do something similar for Newcastle disease. So COVID is a virus and Newcastle is also a virus, but it focuses more on chickens. So I know veterinarians that are working with law enforcement on things like animals that are mistreated and making sure that they get the care that they need. There's so much, right? And so how do you pick which field is right for you? The most common exposure that you're going to have is small animal medicine, right? That is what you may have most access to as a individual looking to come into the profession. However, people know people who know people who know people, right? And so you just look for other veterinarians, see if the veterinarians that you work with know veterinarians that are doing something else. If you have people around you that do veterinary medicine, they can be helpful in helping find somebody else, right? And groups like Possibility, so like my organization, we have tons of veterinarians and veterinary technicians, and they're doing all sorts of different jobs. So that's a good place to go and learn about what people are doing. And I know that's a little bit harder because you have to be 18 to do it, but we also try to have events, and hopefully soon we're going to have some videos that we can share on what different veterinarians do. So you don't have to choose right now. That's the beauty of it, right? So choosing what kind of veterinarian you want to be doesn't actually have to happen even until you go into veterinary school or after you finish veterinary school. And quite frankly, people change from doing one thing to doing a different thing all the time. If you decide that you want to do something really specialized and you want to go to veterinary school and do 3 years and a residency and a PhD and something like that, then you're probably going to end up working in whatever field you decided to do that specialty in. But you will have all sorts of classes. You can do different summer experiences. And when you're doing your hospital rotations, you can find different veterinarians to go and shadow and work with so that you can learn more. I feel like I've been talking for a long time, so I'm going to answer the other question quickly. So we have what is called continuing education. So you can go to conferences, or there will be like things like workshops, and then you get those credits, which are continuing education credits, and you need a certain number a year to remain relevant within the field, I guess is what they call it. I don't know that that's necessarily the right word to use, right? But to stay up to date, like you have in your question. And it has been a lot more difficult, but what has happened with COVID is that people have been able to transition to doing a lot of these online, which has been very good. So usually you have a certain number that you're able to do online, and some that are required that you do in person. And so a lot of places decided to waive that requirement for in-person for the time of COVID, and then allow you to do a lot of it online, which I think will be very nice moving forward as well. I hope that answers your question.
Somebody else that I'd like to, go ahead.
I just want to chime in on how to select the field that you want to go into. I think that the first thing you should do is just keep a very, very open mind. One of the things that I did when I was at university, knowing that I wanted to go to vet school, I happened to go to a university that had a vet school associated with it. I went to the University of Pennsylvania. And so in order to show the University of Pennsylvania Veterinary School that I was really interested in veterinary medicine and that I wanted to go to their school, I applied for work study in their school. And every year I worked in a different laboratory or a different section of the veterinary school. And that way you're earning some money while you're in school, but you get a chance to see the different kinds of things that people do in vet school. And you also, if you do a good job, can get a reference from that person that you work for, so that when you apply, it'll be that much easier, quote unquote, for you to get in.
You know, I was going to also say, like I work with a lot of youth organizations, and kids are just trying to figure out what fields they want to go to, whether it's veterinarian or whatever. And one of the things that even studies show, whatever you love shows up in you even when you're young. So if you like researching right now and you're in school, you may be wanting to go into research in veterinary. There are some kids that love all the law shows, and they watch Law and Order, and they watch all these shows. Well, they may be interested in going into the legal side of veterinary. But for many of you, if you haven't seen the past shows, go back and look at the episodes also. Like we recently had Dr. Love on, and she's radiology, and Bailey was very interactive on that show, where you could see which by the shade, which was tissue, which was bone. And I learned a lot from that. And so go back and look at the past shows on our websites, but also, and Monique, I'm going to do this in the next recap. I'm going to put the links to all of the shows so that in the next recap, so that you guys can easily go back and it will tell you what that particular episode is about. Because we brought a variety of veterinary and veterinary students to the YVI community. So that can also help you guys. Okay. Any other questions for
I think Anna, you had your hand up. Do you still have a question? No, you're good. Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
So I would like to ask Danielle Corbin to come off mute. Danielle is a 6th grade educator at the South Bronx Early College Academy. And I think I mentioned her to you, Valerie, and she has a lot of students who live in the Caribbean and Honduras and places like that. Danielle, can you come off mute for a minute?
And Danielle, just so you know, I actually went to Bronx International High School. So I lived in the Bronx for 3 years.
Well, it is a pleasure to meet you. Thank you. I have every question that I thought of, you answered already. My students would have loved the opportunity to meet you. It's a school in the middle of the South Bronx, right off of Westchester and Prospect. Okay. They built a new building across from the retirement center, right by the train station. And it's a middle school, and they are just excited to learn. And every time I show them a clip of a video about veterinary medicine, their eyes light up because they're so confused. People look like me, I can't believe it. And the excitement that comes from that classroom is just amazing, because everything that you said is 110% valid. They are not exposed to it. They do not see veterinarians that look like them. I shared a clip of a lesson plan for a veterinarian medicine program for the students to watch, and it was dated from the 70s. It wasn't current, and I could tell that they weren't engaged, and I felt it.
Well, first of all, my train stop was Jackson Avenue, so just a couple of stops from you. But also, and I have talked to Bronx International about potentially coming back at some point and talking to students. So I am always willing to, I still have family that live nearby. So I'm always willing to come out and talk to students. Just let me know.
That would be awesome. You
well,
have no idea how
while she's on, I had to get these because she just sent her 2 books to me, and she's sending them to Monique, and she's got a series of books. I mean, Danielle Corbin and Tori that works with her in her school are very involved with YVI, but she's very involved with her students. And we all know when we have a teacher that's very involved with us, that pays attention and hears us and it's creative in their teaching, that's also very important. And I just have to give her kudos for that. And thank you so much for the books. And we're going to be making them available to our YVI community. So thank you, Danielle, for being involved. I'd also like to say something before she leaves. Delane Mayer is a dear friend, and she has been rescuing cats forever. So for whoever was mentioned about cats or whatever, and hopefully I think Delane, you're going to come on as one of our speakers, but I wanted to thank you for being on. Are there any other questions for our esteemed speaker? Well, if not, we are coming up on the hour, and we stuck, like Monique and I have said, we've always said that we thought that YVI was going to just be a 30-minute segment, but it always at least almost comes into it to an hour. We are so thankful for you coming on and developing possibilities and thinking about what others will need as they go through their track for becoming a veterinarian, because as you've said and everyone have seen, it is a long haul, and to know that you've got support there, that is so important. So thank you for being you. Thank you for thinking about others. Even after you've gone through your journey, you knew that there was going to be others that needed support, and we applaud you for that. Dr. Monique Wells, any questions or comments before we sign off?
I think this has been absolutely fabulous as well. I am very grateful to you, Valerie, and I know we're going to be doing a lot more together through Possibilities and the Wells International Foundation and Philanthropy Alliance Foundation as well. Before we go, I would just like to have everybody come off mute for just a second and say where you are calling in from. We'd like to know where you are geographically. You never know who you might meet on this call, who might be just next door to you, and who you might be able to do some things with as well. So can we know Bailey is from Houston? Say hi. Oh, look at you. Look at your hair.
Hi, Bailey. I love your hair.
Thank you.
All right. Jasmine, where are you from? Oh, we have Alexandra saying Miami, Florida.
Miami, Florida. Good.
Jasmine, can you come off mute?
Ma'am, say that again.
Where are you calling from?
Say the question again. Oh, I'm from Cypress, Texas.
Cypress, Texas. Okay.
YVI chapter.
Good, thank you.
Nadia?
I'm from Chicago.
All right.
Thank you for being on.
Yes. Anna.
Fill in. Tell them where you are, or is it in Bassett? And
Teen Anazea Gear, and I'm from the Phoenix chapter.
Oh. Say the organization
now, what
again.
chapters? What is the chapter?
Phoenix chapter from Top Teams of
Of
America.
what?
Yes, Top Teams
Oh,
of
top
America in the
teams.
house.
Ah,
Yay, welcome,
that's
welcome.
what that is.
Yes.
Great. Bassett, where are you from?
I'm from the Atlanta Peachtree chapter.
Okay.
Outstanding. That's our increase here.
Yes.
Is it Marley? Marley Matthews? Where are you from? Well, maybe while she's trying to unmute. Keyshawn? Where are
I'm
you
from the
Atlanta
Peachtree chapter of Atlanta, Georgia.
Outstanding.
All right.
Right.
Tyler.
I'm from the Prairie View chapter of Top Teens.
Prairie View.
Review. All right.
All
Did we
right.
get Bassett yet? And then
Marley is from Beaumont.
Alexandre.
Does that put
Alexandra.
Atlanta, Georgia in the chat?
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Good.
I'm from Miami, Florida. I'm just a veterinarian technician who love this industry and love this profession for the last 15 years. And obviously, I'm just very grateful to be on this platform to speak with y'all and listen in on some of the stories that we all share similarly being in the veterinarian profession. So I greatly appreciate it.
Fantastic.
Well, send us your info. We may want to feature you since you're already on your journey.
We would love to have you speak.
You're gonna love my story. I believe I already LinkedIn request both of you, and I guarantee you, once you hear what I got going on, I will definitely be honored to be a guest speaker on your podcast.
Fantastic.
Outstanding.
And
we have Mr. Lynn, where are you?
I live in Idaho.
Idaho. Thanks
right.
for being on. Did we get everyone?
Boise?
No, Northern Idaho.
Northern Idaho, okay. I think
Up
you're
near
the first.
Coeur d'Alene.
Okay, I think you're the first Idahoan. Is that what they call them?
Yes.
Idahoans. You're the first one for us. This is fantastic. Oh my God, I'm so glad that Top Teens of America is in the house. This is fantastic.
Yes. Did we miss anyone on telling us where you are, where you're located? If not, and if there are no other questions, and Monique, if there's no other comments, again, Valerie, thank you, dear, for being on. We're excited that you presented to us. Of course, we would love to have you visit with us again. And thank you for your so much of, like Monique said, of who have been involved with you have also presented to our YVI community. And so we're very grateful for you and for Seth and your organization.
Thank you all so much for having me. And I put the possibilities email in the chat in case anybody has any questions.
Yes, and we'll be sure to share that.
Yes, we'll make sure and include it in the recap so that people can reach out to you and also refer others that they may know are on their journey to being entering into the field. So again, thank you for being on. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And for those that will be reviewing the video later, love an animal today because it definitely makes the world a better place tomorrow. So talk to everyone soon.
Bye.
Bye.